Imagine going through your entire day and not one thing gets under your skin. Not the coworker who takes credit for your work, not the friend who cancels last minute again, not the stranger who cuts you off in traffic and looks at you like it's your fault. You see it all, you feel it all, but none of it lands. None of it follows you home. Now compare that to how most of us actually live. One offhand comment at breakfast and the whole morning is ruined. One unanswered text and suddenly you're rehearsing arguments in your head with someone who doesn't even know you're upset. We walk around with our nervous systems wired to the outside world, waiting for permission to feel okay, and the outside world almost never gives it. But there's an older way of living, one that doesn't require the world to cooperate. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Peace isn't something you find. It's something you build, brick by brick, principle by principle, until nothing on the outside has the power to move what's on the inside. Today, we're going through 10 of those principles, not theory, tools. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll see exactly why some people seem untouchable and how you can become one of them. Principle 1. The event is neutral. Your story isn't. Epictetus said it plainly. It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. Someone doesn't answer your message. That's it. That's the whole event. Everything else. The assumption that they're ignoring you, the fear that they're upset with you, the spiral about what you did wrong, that's not the event. That's the story you wrote about the event in less than a second, without even noticing you were writing it. Most people never separate the two. They live as if the story and the event are the same thing, and so every silence feels like rejection, every delay feels like disrespect. But once you start asking, what actually happened here versus what did I just decide it means, you take back something enormous. You take back the space between the world and your reaction to it. And in that space is where your whole life actually happens. Principle 2. Your attention is the only thing you truly own. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, and he still wrote to himself every night about the same thing. Where did my attention go today, and was it worth it? If an emperor with armies and enemies and constant political threat had to fight for control of his own focus, what makes you think yours is safe by default? Every time you let your mind get hijacked by something irrelevant, a comment online, a rumor, someone else's bad mood, you're spending the one resource you can never get back. Not your money, not your time exactly, but your attention, which is really your life in its smallest unit. People will try to borrow it without asking. Algorithms are built to steal it. The Stoic move isn't to get angry about that. It's to simply notice gently again and again where your mind has wandered and bring it back. That's it. That's the whole practice. And the people who do this consistently become almost impossible to distract because they've trained the muscle that everyone else lets atrophy. Principle 3. You cannot control outcomes, only effort. This is the one people nod along to and then immediately ignore. You send the application, you have the conversation, you do the work, and then you wait, white-knuckled, for a result you have zero say over. Here's the shift. The Stoics drew a hard line between what's up to us and what isn't. Your preparation, your honesty, your effort, those are yours. The reply, the verdict, the other person's reaction, those were never yours to begin with, no matter how much it felt like they should be. When you put your piece on the side of the line that's actually yours, something strange happens. You start doing better work, not worse, because you're no longer performing for an outcome. You're just doing the thing well for its own sake. And when the outcome doesn't go your way, it stings less, because you never staked your identity on something you never controlled in the first place. Principle 4. Anticipate friction, so it never catches you off guard. The Stoics had a practice called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. Before the day even started, they would sit for a moment and think through what could go wrong. Not to manifest disaster, not to be pessimistic, but to rehearse their response in advance, so that when the difficulty actually showed up, it felt familiar instead of like an ambush. Think about why surprises hurt more than the actual event. It's not usually the rude comment that destroys your day. It's the shock of it, the feeling of being blindsided. But if you'd already pictured someone being short with you, already imagined staying calm through it the moment it happens for real, you're not starting from zero. You're just executing something you already rehearsed. This is why some people seem to glide through chaos that flattens everyone else. They've already been there in their mind 100 times. Principle 5. Criticism is information, not verdict. When someone criticizes you, there are really only 2 questions worth asking. Is there truth in this? And if so, what do I do with it? Everything else, the defensiveness, the need to prove them wrong, the replaying of their words for the next 3 days, is just ego trying to protect an image of yourself that you've gotten attached to. Epictetus pointed out that other people's opinions of us are, by definition, external. They were never inside our control to begin with. So when criticism lands and it stings, the sting isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that some part of your identity is still tied to needing everyone to see you a certain way. The work isn't to become someone who never gets criticized. That's impossible. The work is to become someone who can hear it, take what's useful, and let the rest pass through without it becoming part of your self-image. Principle 6. People's behavior is rarely about you. When someone is cold, sharp, or dismissive, the instinct is to make it personal. What did I do? Why are they like this with me specifically? But almost every time, what you're witnessing isn't an attack. It's a leak. Someone carrying pressure they haven't dealt with, and it's spilling onto whoever happens to be standing closest, which today happens to be you. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. You can still hold a boundary. You can still say, this isn't okay. But you do it from clarity instead of confusion. Because the moment you stop assuming their behavior is a referendum on your worth, you stop carrying weight that was never yours. You feel it, you acknowledge it, and then you set it down, instead of packing it into your bag and carrying it into tomorrow. Principle 7. The pause is where your power lives. Between something happening and you reacting to it, there's a gap. Most people never notice it because it's so small, a fraction of a second, but it's real, and it's the most valuable real estate you own. Viktor Frankl called it the space between stimulus and response, and said that within that space lies your freedom and your growth. The untrained mind closes that gap instantly. Something is said, and the reply is already out of your mouth before you've thought about it. The trained mind learns to widen that gap, even slightly. One breath, one beat of silence. In that beat, you go from being a puppet of whatever just happened to being the author of what happens next. It doesn't feel dramatic in the moment, but stack enough of those pauses together over months and years, and they become the difference between a life that happens to you and a life you actually direct. Principle 8. Let people be wrong about you. Somewhere along the way, most of us absorb the idea that being misunderstood is dangerous, that if someone has the wrong impression of us, we have to correct it immediately or risk losing something. But chasing every misunderstanding, every misread comment, every unfair assumption is one of the fastest ways to burn through your peace. Socrates was famously misunderstood by an entire city right up until the end, and he never spent his final days trying to win over people who had already decided what they thought of him. Letting someone be wrong about you isn't surrender. It's recognizing that your worth was never up for a vote in the first place. You can still speak up when it actually matters. But not every inaccurate opinion deserves your time, your energy, or a seat in your head at 3 in the morning. Principle 9. Your reactions are often older than the moment that triggered them. Sometimes something small happens, a tone of voice, being left out of a conversation, and the reaction that comes up feels way bigger than the moment deserves. That's usually a sign that what you're feeling isn't really about right now. It's an old wound that the current moment just happened to brush up against. This is uncomfortable to admit because it means the work isn't out there with the other person, it's in here with you. But it's also incredibly freeing because it means you're not at the mercy of every person who might accidentally touch that old spot again. The more you can notice in the moment, oh, this feels bigger than it should, the more you can ask what this is actually about, and slowly that old wound stops running the show without your permission. Principle 10. Your calm is not a reward. It's a practice. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. You don't wake up one day permanently calm. There's no finish line where you arrive, and nothing ever rattles you again. What you can build, though, is a habit of returning. Something throws you off, and instead of staying thrown for hours or days, you come back to center faster than you used to. That's the whole game. Aristotle said we become what we repeatedly do, and that includes the version of you that stays grounded under pressure. Every time you choose the pause instead of the outburst, every time you let someone be wrong about you, every time you notice the story you're telling instead of mistaking it for the truth, you're not becoming a different person overnight. You're casting a vote again and again for the person you're becoming. And one day, without any single dramatic moment marking it, you'll notice that something that used to wreck your whole week barely registers anymore. Not because you stopped feeling things, but because you finally built the kind of inner ground that doesn't shift just because the weather outside got rough. If any one of these landed for you today, that's worth sitting with. You don't have to apply all 10 tomorrow. Pick the one that hit hardest and practice just that one this week. That's how all of this actually works. Not all at once, but one principle, one moment, one pause at a time.